Hey everybody, welcome back into the Horseshoe Lounge. We are at Roosters. It is a fun, casual joint, and it is a Tuesday, also known as Appetizer Thursday. That will be out here shortly. We have Justin Zwick, Bobby Carpenter, Bill Landis, and I am Austin Ward. And boy, what a fantastic Memorial Day weekend. How do we all celebrate?
Well, you don't celebrate Memorial Day. You commemorate it. You pay tribute.
Right.
You can commemorate it. Someone even a real, what do you call it, a deep groove brain idea. They're like, why don't we just memorialize it? I'm like, well, that is built in the name.
Yes.
So, yeah,
I think they thought of that.
Pretty nice. It was it started like forever. I feel like the weekend for me lasted maybe a week. You get the 3-day weekend, but Wednesday night we had my wife and I had a wine dinner we went to. So it's like kind of started a little fun time.
Started the weekend on a Wednesday.
Then Thursday we had our station manager, Todd Markowitz, the Platinum Foxes, moving on. So we had a party for him. So it was Thursday night, and then watched a little bit of the NBA Finals intermittently throughout, and then I don't know, Friday did the normal shenanigans that we get into, and had a soccer tournament all weekend, intermittent pool time with some libations going on. Same thing Saturday. Went to Mandrake, which is really good downtown. Fantastic. Have you been there?
No.
It's really good.
JC doesn't go downtown.
Yeah, I try to stay away.
Well, they said I could buy the steak knife for $5 as a defense mechanism on the way out.
There you go.
Flak jackets for $40. Said I'll just go. I'll spring for the night. The steak knife will be good. And she loved the joke though. I thought it was a real banger.
Yeah.
And
It's world class shake.
it was. And then Sunday, hung out, relaxed, finished up the soccer tournament. And then yesterday, it's like more pool time.
Yeah.
Did my local show, which was kind of a rough one in the morning, and then thought I'd watch the second half of an NBA Game 7 Finals that would be good, Eastern Conference Finals, and my goodness, that was a beatdown of epic proportions. So
let's go to bed early.
Waking up this morning was just, I ended up watching the whole thing. I was thinking there was going to be some sort of run that never happened.
It's always the fourth quarter. They always come back.
Yeah, I'm waiting for them to cut to 10. I'm like, we're going the wrong way.
What was it? How many did they win by?
It was up to 23 at one point.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was like 12 at half, and that thing just kept ballooning. I was waiting for him to kind of yeah, it never did. So, yeah. And then here we are today. It's Appetizer Tuesday at Roosters, which we'll get the featured appetizer, by the way, which you cannot see yet, but we'll see at some point. Mozzarella sticks.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's a big day for Jay-Z.
Well,
sticks.
They're a real 5-tool player. They're your ace. They're your starter that everybody's going to have a consensus on.
Dependable.
Yeah, they're crispy. They're on the
Always
outside.
Delicious.
Gooey on the inside. $3 all day long for Appetizer Thursdays at Roosters. So we got all that going for us. And and then this week, the other thing with this week is one of the great events that we have in Columbus.
Assistant Coach Media Day.
Assistant Coach Media Day, which is today, and then the Memorial Tournament, which practice rounds will be going off tomorrow. And they've got Pro-Am and everything else. So I go out there and do our local show there, and it's just...
It's a long week for you.
It's a long week.
You guys are going
week.
live from Muirfield at 6 in the morning?
We did it last year, too. When you pull up...
At least the weather's going to be nice this year.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. And you're watching people mow with lights on out there. I'm like, this is
It's the real deal,
level.
man, yeah.
Oh, but it's great. I mean, they bring us out some breakfast.
And you get to stay there all day and hang out?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I got a great parking spot. There's not really anybody battling for the spots there.
Yeah.
It's us and the people that are working the tournament. And usually, before I'd have to kind of explain, again, sometimes the media lot would fill up and, talking, right there, man. The guy's like, oh, hey, Bobby, how we doing? Listen to you guys every morning. Turn it on here in a half hour.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
Just come catch the live version.
There's nobody that's trying to get in there beforehand. And so it's nice. You get to do the show and then, finish off the show with the transfusion and really hit the ground running at 9 o'clock.
Maybe a
Not sure
milkshake in the
Memorial
afternoon.
Day weekend has stopped for you.
I know.
It's really like a 2-day work week for me, even though I worked yesterday. But
Love that.
Wow.
Jay-Z?
I did not have that
Sweating
much
out
fun,
oil.
but played a little golf, and I did play golf on Saturday, so it was nice. Lost a few bucks, unfortunately.
Uh-oh.
Then Sunday I had to put together a nice little inflatable pool, so I didn't get the fun pool time. I got I don't even know, it has like a pterodactyl coming out the side, like one of the blow-ups, and then it has a dragon that goes over and sprays down, and so the daughter was loving that.
it's a lot of work.
Yeah, well,
Spared no expense.
I got one of the, one of those
Air pumps,
air pumps that just gets after it. So that was very helpful. But just a lot of family time. Had a cookout yesterday and celebrated my 1-year-old's birthday.
Here we go.
Yeah, so it was a big Memorial Day weekend.
Bill, how was your weekend?
Pretty low key. Had a little farmer's market Saturday morning. That was a lovely time. Sunday morning, I met up with the Ward crew at Land Grant. Watched a little F1. Had a little half dozen beers before noon. Never hurt anybody.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. So it was. Otherwise, it was fairly low key, but it was nice.
Who won the race?
Max Verstappen.
Ooh,
and a big stunner.
Yeah.
Won the pole and then won the race.
How about that?
Yeah.
It seems to happen a lot in that.
More often than not.
Yes.
Won 4 out of 6.
Like, why do I tell my buddies, why am I? I know who's going to win.
Well, he
Unless
has
something
lost
crazy
twice
happens.
this year already.
Yeah. Well.
And Monaco, anything can happen.
The real sweet spot is when he qualifies poorly and then he gets plus odds to win and then you hammer it. And that happened 2-3 races ago.
Yeah.
Let's put a cool like $150 on Max to win because it's
units.
Units, yeah. It's not bucks, it's units. I know that, Bill. Come on.
Free money.
Yeah, it is. What a lovely Memorial Day we all had, and now it's heating up. It's going to be feels like it's 90 already. Going to be 90 all week in Columbus. You know that means camp season is coming. You mean summer workouts.
Yeah, some of the camp. Some of those guys are starting to come through the Woody already. They had them in there giving tours, talking to the fellas. So
we saw also some photos last week of summer workouts, and Bill and I took note of Donovan Jackson in the background of one photo. Bob, I don't know if you saw it. He looked like an absolute monster. I'm sure you've seen his workouts.
Yeah, he's a good-looking dude.
Yeah, he looks like he's been inflated. Muscular.
The
not DeWan style.
Yeah.
This is full.
The good
up.
inflated.
I don't know. He looks like a different dude to me. But we talked about those workouts, how important they are. Like, seems like they're already in full effect.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm just thinking they've been back for, what, a week or two?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, last week was their first week,
Yeah.
and then yesterday they didn't do anything, obviously, Memorial Day weekend. So let those guys get out of there a little bit. Oh, we had my third son turned 10 on the 20th, and, there's a million things going on in the end of school. So we ended up having his party on the 27th, and got to have a nice little surprise visit for the kids from Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr. So yeah, they were pretty juiced up and pumped about that. And those guys are awesome. It was just some of the another dad, Jesse Klein, was there with me. He's like,
Nice.
Marvin, he's like the nicest guy in the world. I'm like, exactly.
Yeah.
He's the only guy you could compare him to is like Chris Campbell. He's like, he's so quiet and just like so polite and respectful and just awesome with the kids, and made about 16, 9, and 10-year-olds a day. So him and Kyle, they were awesome. Kyle brought his girlfriend over. Marvin was flying out to go see his girlfriend. I was like, I'll stop by on the way to the airport. No big deal, man. So
I've always said,
good people.
Proud sons of the Philadelphia Catholic.
That's right.
That's what I've long believed.
Politeness is, I think, the thing that jumps out.
That's what they teach there.
First and foremost, when you think about Philadelphians,
Brotherly love, I believe.
Oh yeah, I put right up there them up there with the Bostonians.
Oh god.
Yeah.
I'm trying to start a feud on the show this week. Guys, it is so we're going to get assistant coach media day. We're going to have a lot more to talk about.
Berm, did you write down the questions that they gave you last week?
They're up here, huh?
You have to go back and rewatch
deep
the
groove,
show.
Brian.
We'll get to that when Berm's on the show and why this might be shot at a slightly different angle than a normal show. But that's aside from the point. Last week,
because the dangle's different.
yeah, there's a dangle.
You gotta keep your chin up on this angle.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks, but we're doing our best. It was full list season last week,
Ooh, yes.
and Bill Connolly, it seems like he normally puts some rankings together that we can take to the bank. Pretty sharp guy.
Yeah. Listen, I don't like math in my football, but he's.
I don't like math in my football.
but he's sharp. He's usually correct.
Usually correct, right?
Yeah.
So that's what really struck me the wrong way when he put out his top 75 quarterback rankings.
Are these
of
predictive
the 2000s.
analytics?
These were not predictive, and current quarterbacks were excluded from the list. But think about everybody who's played quarterback since the year 2000.
This was wild. I looked through that.
Number one, and this is when I wanted to stop,
right after this.
was Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Number one. How is that possible?
Got extra points for planting a flag in the artificial
Crotch
turf.
grab at Kansas. Those are
You
bonus
didn't.
points.
If you never won a national championship, I have a hard time. Did he win a playoff game?
No.
Okay, never even
He
won.
played in the Rose Bowl against Georgia. It was awesome. But they lost.
It was a good game.
Yeah.
They played
It was a
well,
good
but they
game, yeah.
lost. I just two of the most remarkable single season performances you've ever witnessed were done by Joe Burrow and Cam Newton, and the fact that they're like 4-5 or something, like it was kind of wild.
Yeah.
And Vince Young, I would almost put in there as well. He didn't win a Heisman, but he probably should have. my senior year, and then he ended up winning the national championship over what people thought was the unbeatable team. I just look around and I'm like, Tim Tebow, love him or hate him, probably could have won 2 Heismans, won 2 national titles, really good. But I'm like, but Baker, that's who we landed on, right? Like, you could start just rattling them off. So you're like, yeah, probably this guy, probably this guy. And like, I understand there's obviously going to be some ambiguity, but if I can name like 5 guys who I would say better college career,
I think you'd name more than.
I'm just saying definitively like 5. I played this game with Jacob Hester, and I like listed off 5 or 6 before Baker even like came to mind.
When you think about what came after, and
you start saying
Baker left and
Oklahoma.
Kyler Murray comes in, and he's basically the same player, So it's like, is that the system or is that the player? Or is where's
Kyler Murray at 7,
which is
also made me angry.
But
there must have been bonus points for playing in Norman. I don't know.
Or being under 6 feet tall. I don't know.
Or living in proximity to
I guess
Lincoln
that much
Riley.
harder for them because they're short.
Yeah.
We got to put them in the top 10.
But there had to be some, Bill Connelly uses a lot of math in that football. There had to be something. It just doesn't compute to me that Baker Mayfield could be number 1 from the last 23 years.
Yeah, from without knowing off the top of my head, I'm sure from a statistical standpoint, he compares quite favorably, and maybe he is the best if you stack him up that way. But I think to Bob's point, like national championships should matter, especially if you have comparable quarterbacks and then there's national championships involved. Like that to me is a trump card. Like I think Baker was an awesome college football quarterback, probably in that exercise top 10. I think
one of the best.
Yeah. But number one's pretty wild. I think I can come up with 6 or 7 pretty quickly that I put ahead of Baker, because it's not just the statistical output, and it's like that is a turnkey offense that he played in. It's kind of a similar thing to Ohio State. Like they just keep plugging guys in and they keep producing at similar levels. I think that should matter in the conversation, but we have the one-offs, like especially Burrow. Like Burrow was such a special year. And Cam Newton, I guess maybe that's the knock on them. Like Burrow, I know started for 2 years at LSU. Cam only started 1 year at Auburn, right?
Cam had like no NFL players around him.
No, I'm not saying
Cam saddled up an entire team.
I would argue in favor of Cam. I think Cam is the best college football player I've ever seen, but I guess that's the knock because he only played
had 1 year. Joe had a good year and then a historic
decent year, and then
had a historic year with it. The other thing is too, people look at the stats. I'm like, dude, stats. One of my friends who works in the NFL front offices, he's like, stats are like hostages. They'll tell you whatever they want.
Yeah. And
like watching the game, like there's a difference between throwing for 400 yards and throwing for 400 yards. What did the game look like? Is it a 3rd and 8 and you're sitting there on a game-winning drive? I always sit there and watch Vince Young against USC in that final drive, and I don't think there was a doubt in anybody's mind like this dude's going to go down and score. They're not going to be able to stop him, whether it's by hook or crook, throwing or passing, whatever it is. That's how I kind of define it. Like, how are you able to make big plays in critical junctures? And you would even look at CJ. It's like, all right, well, you didn't maybe in these games, maybe in Michigan, you're okay here and there. Didn't make any like crazy great plays. And against Georgia, man, like you made big throws and big moments right when you needed to. And like when you watch the games, you can feel the difference in some of those throws. Like games kind of wavering. It's a 3rd and 7. Can't go 3 and out again. Need to come up with something. Yeah. And whether it's a run, I don't care how it looks. You just keep your team moving by doing something. And that's the stuff that some of those guys, when I watch them, like, man, I feel like they were just a little bit better at that.
Yeah, that's one thing we didn't watch. I mean, you bring up CJ. That last game was, if he'd have done that for 2 years, he'd have won 2 Heismans, in my opinion. I mean, just the way he did find those, gosh, it's 3rd and something. We got to go get this first down no matter how it happened. And I wish we'd have seen a little bit more of him out of that. But, I mean, gosh, 2000's a long way back. I mean, we've seen so many good quarterbacks come through here just in the last 5 or 6 years. It's really tough. Baker was a great player coming out. Browns drafted him number one pick in the NFL, so he was doing something right. I mean, who would your guys' number 1 be? I mean, is Cam Newton
Cam Newton or Vincio?
Yeah, I think there's a legitimate case for Tebow. It just depends on what. I don't know what the criteria was.
Even Tebow being that high. I know he won and he was. He was awesome, but if you're talking quarterback,
we're not putting him up. I'm not putting him up there at number 1 because he's the best mechanical passer that's ever happened.
Yeah, fair. He was just a winner and
a dual threat quarterback.
It's huge. I mean, that's what quarterback play is mostly about. You got to be a winner.
Yeah, I think Cam should win on the strength of that season,
playing in the SEC and
factor in the level of talent around him. But I was interested to dive more into the Ohio State portion of that rankings, where C.J. Stroud checked in as the highest, according to Bill Connelly from that group. if you look back at the last 23 years, how are we going to rank them, Bob? You think CJ is number one? I cast my vote for Justin Fields.
Justin was really good. Gosh,
we had a Heisman winner as a quarterback. Well, that's
he's in this group.
Yeah, and that's the thing with.
So is Justin Zwick.
That's the thing is, you look at this. Like CJ, obviously great statistical numbers, beautiful throw of the football. Justin, like if the world didn't move against him in that first playoff that he was a part of, like what would it look like him battling Joe Burrow in that team with LSU? I think that could have been a huge legacy thing. I go back to like some of the plays, and the game has changed a lot. But honestly, what Troy did in critical situations and big games, like notwithstanding the Florida game, outside of that, he was pretty darn good when he needed to be. And so, I mean, I don't know. It's hard not to put a guy that won a Heisman Trophy, right there, probably number one. As much as it pains me to say it, I mean, Terrell Pryor did a lot of good things with the ball in his hand too. And like even JT, it just looked differently. Like Justin is probably your second. And then when you start getting to the third, I mean, it's kind of what's your preference for how the guy plays the position? Yeah. Because you look at like TP, JT.
Or what was the offense that they had when they were here? Because when you go back to our national championship quarterback in 2002, and that offense was, largely on part of Maurice Claret. Craig made plays when he needed to. I mean, he was one of those guys. Hey, we got to get a run, or he would make the pass or make the play at the end of the game to Jenkins in the corner of the end zone for a touchdown. But it was just a different offense than what we're seeing Justin Fields come out and just have all these stinking weapons, and they're airing it out and doing what they can. So it's that does come into play. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. That's a valid point.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at JT Barrett as a Tim Tebow type guy who's just like really good, won a lot of games. He was the winner, was the commander of the team. But would I say he was the best quarterback that we've had? I don't think so. Troy winning the Heisman, he did. When we needed plays, he made them, whether it was just keeping the play alive, hanging on the sideline, getting a completion, taking a cheap shot and getting 15 yards, in the Michigan game that happened.
Yeah.
It all just kind of worked for him, and he was able to get it done. So that he would be up there. I think we fall into Justin Fields was all, the guys who we've seen later in life, because
recency bias.
Yeah, my mind's going. So it's like thinking back all the, back in the day is a little bit harder, but gosh, we've had a good run here when Ohio State's not typically known, or hasn't been, at least when I came through, we weren't typically known as a quarterback school. And so now we have 3 or 4 we could pick from here in the last 10 years. That's pretty good. I don't think that's a problem. I would probably say Troy winning the Heisman is number one. And, Justin Fields is a very close second. I really like what he did. And then, CJ was awesome. And like I said, if he'd have done what he did against Georgia for 2 years, I think we'd have a different conversation here.
It's tough, man. Like, if the conversation is who's going to be the best pro, who throws the prettiest ball, then I think you start with CJ and Dwayne. Mm-hmm. But I think of quarterbacking in college football differently. Like in my mind, like JT Barrett is like a quintessential college quarterback, not the most polished pass in the world, but just like tough as nails, made almost every play you needed him to make. And like I think in this kind of conversation, that stuff matters. So I think I would have him pretty high up there. It's hard to move Troy with the Heisman Trophy. Like he was the best player in the sport for his last year playing, and that should matter. What does he look like if he's playing in this version of the Ohio State offense? Probably that much better. Justin was just so different, though. Like I think I would probably go if the question is college football quarterback, not best pro or whatever, and most polished, most talented. I think I'd probably go Justin, Troy, JT, and then maybe CJ and Dwayne. But they're also hard to compare because they're also different. But I would give a little bit of a nod to a guy like JT for being a little bit of like a throwback kind of college quarterback that I think is fun to embrace. Would your answer be any different if I said you had to win one game, whatever the stakes are, gun to your head, $1 billion? Would your rankings look different? Or would you, if you say Troy's number one, would he still be the one you wanted to go win one game tomorrow?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean he was a Wolverine killer. I knew my sophomore year that it was going to be an uphill battle for myself because he went out and had a heck of a game against a team we shouldn't have been. We weren't supposed to be in the game with. So yeah, I mean he always showed up in those spots. So I think that would probably be mine too. That's where I think JT may get a slight bump. I'm not saying he would be my pick. I'd still take Justin Fields, but
depending on what you're doing, you got the evolved version of the Ryan Day offense. Has Braxton Miller come up as a conversation piece there?
I mean, he won 2 silver footballs.
It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Yeah, he wants to talk about different. That dude is.
Well, yeah.
Bill and I were talking about that with Berm last week. Like we were asked what was the most memorable play we'd ever seen covering Ohio State. To me, that's where Braxton jumps to the top of the list. It's that
highlight reel.
3rd and
So
1
many
against
of them,
Penn
yeah.
State in 2012 on the road there. Like, yeah, it was a 1-yard run. It was the most electrifying 1-yard run that you're ever going to see. And maybe it is the recency bias, Jay-Z. I don't know, but he didn't do enough things with his arm where you're like, well, he goes right into that quarterback conversation. But what would 20 and 12 or 13 have looked like if he wasn't out there doing otherworldly things? This roster wasn't really built to thrive in that way at this point. So he may get a little bit of short shrift in this conversation, and it's not a knock on his ability.
And we saw when Urban came in how almost giddy he was, knowing like, all right, I get to coach this guy.
He wanted him in Florida, right? He tried to bring him there.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, that shows you how good of a player he was. I mean, he knew, and he was excited to get in there and coach him, and like you said, who knows what that looks like.
They put so much on him, too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Especially in
Had to.
2012. I mean, it was him and Philly Brown. Like, that was the whole show.
Yeah.
I mean, Carlos Salle, they had like 3 guys. Like, here you go. Let's go win games. Just run the ball as much as you can.
Yeah, I think that 2012 game at Michigan State was the first road game, first Big Ten game for Urban, and Braxton, he ran him into the ground. I think he ran like 25 times. He threw it every
off
time.
Tackle too.
Just go do it down the field. It was a low-scoring slugfest game. It wasn't one of these.
That's like 13-9.
I think it was 17-16.
17-16. That's right.
And it was a very unusual Urban Meyer and Ohio State game, and they were down. And Braxton did make a play to win that game with his arm. He threw a nice one to Devin Smith down the sideline.
Dropped it in the
bucket. One of
man.
Jay-Z's favorite stats.
That's
there.
right.
Devin Smith scores a touchdown.
I think about the one against Wisconsin at home where at the end of the game, scrambling to his right, almost going out of bounds, does the old jump fade away to Devin Smith in the back of the end zone.
Yeah, he made a bunch of highlight reel plays, and I think sometimes maybe that trumps our thinking. Like,
was he on the list, on the ESPN list?
No,
no, he wasn't. And again, that also tells you how far Ohio State has come at quarterback.
Yeah.
He was top 5 Heisman, wasn't he, 2013?
Yeah. 2012 he was as well, I believe. I think maybe he was higher in 2012, and then...
Yeah, that feels like a glaring omission.
Yeah, he was special. And now you just have this conversation every year where, like, all right, Kyle McCord's next.
Yeah.
You have to be a Heisman trophy finalist. Good luck, bud.
It's insane.
It's great expectations to
It
have.
is.
I mean, that's what they built. So I'm not going to argue with it. I mean, Ryan's set that out there, and like you said, guy that won. I believe people that have won 2 silver footballs. I want to say it's Drew Brees.
Did JT win too?
JT won too.
Yeah. JT, yes. Going into Braxton though, until that point, it was like Drew Brees.
Yeah, before.
It was like I think it was Drew Brees and Braxton.
Oh, really?
Because I think even when Archie won it, Archie won in one of the years he won the Heisman. I think the other year Pete Johnson got it. I'm almost positive. I looked that up.
The touchdown vulture, Pete Johnson.
Yes.
So, Bill, we're going over later on. We're going to talk to the assistant coaches.
Yep.
You already gave a bunch of your questions on the podcast daily on Tuesday morning. Are you still most interested to hear about the offensive line?
Yeah, but I think in the spirit of mentioning something different, like we've not talked much with Justin Fry about what being run game coordinator means for him, and maybe the answer is nothing, because it's Ryan Day's offense. But I am somewhat curious about maybe what the run game can look like, sort of stylistically going into next year with this complement of running backs we talked about a lot, and I guess it will depend on what the strengths and weaknesses are of the offensive line. But when you think about, and Justin Fry's, I guess, offensive background is very similar to Ryan Day's. They worked together under Steve Adazio, and Justin worked with Chip Kelly, but there's a lot to draw from there. And I feel like their run game has been fairly consistent in terms of, like, you know what you're going to get. Is there an opportunity for Justin Fry here to open it up a little bit, sprinkle some different things, and kind of put his stamp on it as he steps up into that role?
Will the new guy be there today, Philbin?
I highly doubt that.
Yeah, I would be surprised.
The quality control and analyst positions are generally unavailable. They come
big name
for
being,
comment?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we never speak to that. Those guys that came through before, Paul Rhodes, Joker Phillips, some other guys who had head coaching experience, or Todd Fitch currently, we never get to put them in front of a camera, in front of a microphone. That's been Ohio State's policy, and that's, I mean, we can talk about that more with Berm since that was announced in the second half of the show. But like, it's just an interesting move. Not sure like how much is really involved, how significant it is, but we can get into that in the second part.
Update.
Yeah.
Silver football. JT only won it once.
Oh, he did?
He won it in 16 when he split it with Saquon Barkley. So not even a full.
Really?
I thought he won in 14.
Yeah, half of it.
No, Zeke won it, and maybe Zeke won it in 15. Melvin Gordon won it in 14. Remember, he was the Heisman finalist that got 13 yards in the Big Ten championship.
Yeah.
Drew Brees did not win it twice, won it once. Anthony Thomas won it in 87-88, and then Archie won it in 73-74. Not Pete Johnson. Corny Green got it his senior year in 75.
Okay. And then Braxton was the last.
He's the last two-time winner. There's only been three: Archie, Anthony Thomas, and Braxton.
Interesting.
So there you go.
That's wild. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Little Jack Park fiction.
That live fact check.
Live fact check.
Who won it in 2020?
Goodness, I have
It wasn't Justin, because Justin won in 19, right?
2020 would have been. Yeah, Justin was 20. Chase was 19.
Oh, yeah, he was good.
Yeah.
That was a worthy selection.
Yeah.
Branching out, not giving it to a quarterback.
Yeah.
Check that. Saquon Barkley did win it twice because he shared it and then won it. So there's four.
That's 1.5.
Yeah.
They sliced it down the middle.
You only have half
You only get-
Here's your half of the silver football. That's what we're talking about. Mozzarella sticks are out. JC, have you tasted
Delicious. Had one while Bill was talking. Very good, up to par, as I expect them to be.
You can get those today, as long as you're watching on Tuesday. Appetizer Thursday.
$3 all day long.
Get 5 or 6 Mozz sticks.
I believe
Maybe
6
share-
is
looks like
the.
there's 6 in there.
Yeah, I believe 6 is what it comes with. You know.
Nice piping hot cup of marinara with it.
Marinara soup. Share with your friends or keep them all for
No,
yourself.
keep 'em
Whatever
for
you
yourself.
want to do, you can come hang out at Roosters just like we did on a Tuesday. It's a fun, casual joint. We'll be right back.
Roosters has been so fortunate. We just want to be able to give some of that back to the community.
They donate to organizations that are near and dear to their heart, and we're so fortunate to have been with Roosters now for a long time.
They will always go above and beyond to help support our foundation to further help veterans.
It's just a wonderful feeling to know that Roosters supports the Buckeye Cruise for Cancer.
All the folks at Roosters are just genuinely kind folks, and they want to make a difference.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
Thank you, Roosters.
Thank you, Roosters.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
All right, welcome back into the Horseshoe Lounge at Roosters. It is time for Berm to get here and give us this week's smooth-brained moment. Brought to you by Berm.
Apparently, you need one of those tripods for cameras, which I neglected to pack today.
Now, do we have one of those in our?
Oh yeah, I got a couple.
You really don't need one. You could have a human being just stand there and hold it the whole time.
It just provides a much better photo, a much better video.
I
But
don't
in this
know.
instance, I do always have a backup. Like, so I had a micro tripod in my backpack,
micropod.
which is what we're using. It's just a slightly smaller version. So you're looking up at us this time instead of looking down on us, which is about time, YouTube. I'm tired of you people looking down on me.
I mean, if you would have put the chair on top of the table, then you could have put it down there. And it
That would
probably,
have looked funky.
We tried
oh, you did?
because he wanted to put. So right now it's on a table. We've moved the table, just a little behind the scenes. And Berm
We call
has,
BTS in the biz.
what kind of grip are those sort of bead-like materials there?
That's
I don't
interesting.
know, but
Those are
it's-
definitely those are
look like
anal beads.
I'm gonna go ahead and tell you.
They look like beads.
Number one, I can't believe you just said that on the show. Number two, that tripod.
You can't believe it?
That tripod, that small tripod that there is a much more expensive version of the tripod than we normally use.
Oh yeah, that thing, the flexibility of
Yeah.
those
We
to
were
be able to just turn and then boom.
Yeah, the Joby.
we were so
It's a doozy.
Berm wanted to put it on a chair and lock it in place because they're very malleable beads.
Very pliable.
Very pliable and flexible. You can put it in a bunch of different positions. And he was going to put it, I said, well, just put a chair on top of the table. Because when he got here, he was stacking chairs. And I said, I don't think that's going to work.
Some people stack days. Some people stack chairs. I was attempting to stack chairs on a day that I would stack a day.
Okay. And anyway,
Yeah, that's it.
You got your laptop today. That's the big thing, right?
Yeah, we're ahead.
And
of the
people
game.
asked me last week, "Where's it at?" I usually listen to it by now.
We're ahead of the game.
I'm
We're
like,
ahead of the game.
"Oh,
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
Verm, you've been doing this setup for
That's true.
how long now?
A while now.
Multiple years.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
It's been a few years, yeah.
You drive down. I mean, at some point, you probably drive, and you have done it so often, because this would happen to me when I was up in Detroit. It's a long drive, a lot of flat land. And like I'm driving, and I'm like, oh, where am I? I'm here. I don't even remember passing through Findlay. All of a sudden now I'm on 75. I was going to stop and get gas back there, but
that literally happened today. I passed Marion, and I was like, did I pass Marion yet? And then I realized that I'm
already on the other side.
Yeah. Like, oh, cool.
Oh, there you go.
I'm here.
But
nice one.
I asked that because you bring the same number of bags every time.
Yeah.
And each bag has a designated purpose with what's in it.
Well, not the last 2 weeks. He hasn't.
No, I
he has
understand
not.
that.
We're extenuating circumstances.
He has not.
Okay, so I want to be very clear. I slept from approximately 9 a.m. yesterday morning until I woke up at 8 o'clock last night, was back in bed by 10, and then woke up at 7 o'clock this morning. So I was in bed for roughly 20 out of 24 hours.
His wonderful trip to New York
because
City.
the bus
last
trip,
weekend.
I didn't sleep really for the last 4 days, and so I was a little bit brain.
City that never sleeps is what they call it.
It was a little bit of an exhausting trip, both mentally and physically, and I slept about 20 of the last 24 hours previous to getting on the road.
You feel refreshed.
So you should have been like ready to rock this morning.
Yeah, but then I had to take my stepdaughter to school. And
You're still in
go,
school?
Go straight. Yeah,
You're in
they
Michigan,
start
that's
after
right.
Labor Day. So, so then I had to go straight from school to here, but I had to also take a detour to school because of road closures that started this morning. There's a lot of things. My camera stuff was in the garage as opposed to normally just in the car because I had to unpack the car when we went to the school on Thursday. And so lots of great things happening. But the most important thing is that we get to talk Ohio State football today.
You get to talk to the assistant coaches.
That's right.
Yes.
And I gave you all those great questions last week.
The biggest thing for me is that we're now entering June, right? Spring visits or over official visits start for Ohio State this coming Saturday. Days like today, when we get a chance to talk to coaches, in person, provide a really great opportunity to catch up on some stuff that I don't necessarily always get to hear from them directly because, it's easier to get information when we're face to face.
Don't give away all your secrets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you guys have any other questions about his trip to New York City?
It was not great. I'm going to be
Did you
honest.
see the Statue of Liberty?
Did you get shanked?
Pardon?
Did you get attempted stabbing?
No.
Did you see any poop on the sidewalk?
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah.
That's
How about the ambient? How about just the ambient smell of marijuana that permeates?
it's legal there.
Well, it's definitely. I mean, maybe I don't know. But
Marijuana / urine.
We had
That's
honestly, it was a really
real
great
smell.
time. I gained a tremendous level of respect for I've always respect police officers stuff. NYPD the work that they do, being in Times Square. I can't imagine.
Oh, it's terrible.
How
It's
just insane
wild
life there is on. This was a fairly calm weekend, and we were out at the Statue of Liberty. We saw pretty much everything you could imagine.
You go to Freedom Tower.
We didn't go there. We did go to 9/11. We went to the 9/11 museum.
Nice.
So I mean, we packed a lot into this trip. The people did a great job. It was just exhausting.
It's a lot of walking.
Friday though, because we got on the bus Thursday night at 6:30, and then drove through the night. Got to Times Square.
What was this trip for?
Band, choir.
Oh, your
art.
kids, your girls. Okay.
Yeah. So we're on a bus with 35 children and four other
How many
chaperones.
chaperones? Oh, just 4?
So myself, my wife, and then 4 others. So 6 of us plus the band director and choir director. So 8 adults. And
What was the hotel setup for the adults?
I don't know. I was in the room with my wife.
I didn't know if there was a key. So you guys had a key hat and.
No. Nothing like that, Bob.
Pick
Not
one.
that type of show.
Here we go.
We stayed in the Meadowlands. We stayed at right next to We get there and all the people on the bus are like, Taylor Swift is here this weekend. We should skip New York and just all go to the show. Or the Meadowlands.
Well, yeah.
Right across from where we were staying,
They're
so you
right.
could see it out of the. We tried.
Wait, did you? There's a Marriott over there.
Yeah, we stayed at the Fairfield.
That's where we would stay. I was with the Cowboys, I think.
So it was fine. Good trip. Honestly, I got on the bus at 6:30 on Thursday night, but then didn't get to sleep I couldn't sleep on the bus because I don't really sleep in motion. I never slept in a car ride.
But yet you won't fly on a plane.
I don't sleep in motion.
Doesn't sleep in the air either.
I don't
You
sleep.
better hope that you're long gone before we have to move our society to space and live on space stations and stuff.
Definitely. So I don't sleep in motion. So I didn't get to bed until about 10:30, 10:45 on Friday night. So I was awake from 8 o'clock Thursday morning until about 10:45 on Friday night. But I was not only could I not sleep on the bus, I also couldn't move on the bus. I was just cramped into a little seat because the children decided to all sleep on the floors instead of in their seats uncomfortably. They decided to stretch, so I couldn't stretch my legs.
This was like a Greyhound. This was like a charter bus. Okay.
And then I was wearing a brand new pair of shoes that we bought on Wednesday because I didn't realize that I
was I wanted to break them in while we're walking around.
I didn't realize I wasn't going to get to take. I didn't realize I wasn't going to take
two places you don't want to take new shoes.
Why not?
New Orleans.
I don't know.
And New York.
I don't know why I didn't realize I wouldn't have a chance to change my shoes or to just take them off. So brand new pair of shoes that I walked 38,000 steps on Friday. The combination of all those things, like any one of those things individually, not a big deal. All four of those issues at once, not being able to sleep, cramped in, new shoes, 38,000 steps in one day. By the time we got back to the hotel on Friday night, I was this close to being on the news for murdering someone.
Then what happened to your shoes the next day?
Then my old pair of shoes, which I brought for my second day, decided to break as we were walking around. And so I had to go to Foot Locker in Times Square to buy a new pair of shoes.
So you had 2 new pairs of shoes there.
So I'm wearing the new shoes that I had to buy then now. Whatever. It was a really good trip, but for me personally, it was a comedy of errors.
Okay.
I had to buy a new pair of shoes in New York one time too. I wore them for 12 hours.
Yeah, it sucked. I had a great time. New York, weather was perfect. The tour guide we had was awesome. It was a really good time. I think I tweeted once in 5 days. I didn't write any stories.
Really get back to nature. Just unplug.
Go to the city to unplug.
Central Park was great. I mean,
it's great. All the bums there.
A lot of really we didn't see any. I didn't see many bums in Central Park. We were there in the morning, so in the late morning, mid afternoon. So
get lost in there real easy.
A lot of that was migration. Maybe the migration time.
Yeah, moving throughout the day, other spots.
Yeah, so it was good. Now we get back to real life. We get football today.
Yes.
I'm going to go to a 7-on-7 in Wapakoneta. Wednesday night.
That's to watch old boy from
Bellefontaine.
Bellefontaine.
Davian St. Clair and Ryan Montgomery, both 2025 quarterbacks at Ohio State's offer.
Where's Ryan Montgomery? He's the
Finley, right?
Finley. So we have 2 guys from rural, northwest.
We've offered both of them, right?
Yep, 30 minutes away from each other.
Finley and Bellefontaine.
When I saw that come through, I said,
Ryan
so
Montgomery.
Brett Hatcher, he what's his last name? St. Clair?
Tavian, yep.
Yeah, his dad, they played baseball at Bellefontaine.
Oh, really?
Together, Hatch, yeah.
Nice.
I was talking to him about him the other day.
Ryan Montgomery, Luke Montgomery's younger brother, the true freshman offensive lineman. So, going to get to watch those guys compete head-to-head tomorrow, which is great. I would like to see that.
Can we have them? You know what I want them to do at these Elite 11 camps? Can they do an old school style duel, but with footballs? No helmets on.
Turn around.
You march it off, and you turn and whip it at the dude's face.
I don't see why not.
I mean, think how great that would be.
Why wouldn't they be allowed to do that, Bob? There's no rules.
There doesn't seem to be a rule.
I mean,
You're willing.
Listen.
Will OSHA allow it?
I don't know if you know this, but on this date, I forget, 1806 or 7, our future president at the time wasn't elected yet. Andrew Jackson shot Charles Dickinson in a duel, killed him.
Boom.
Bam, dead. So
That's author?
What? That's Charles Dickens.
Oh, right.
The guy made fun. Hey, you know what started? Made fun of his wife.
Let's take it outside, sir.
Will Smith.
They tried to couch it with some other things, and I was reading through he insulted his wife. That was probably the final straw.
I think it's also worth noting that on this date 12 years ago was the day that Jim Tressel was
oh my God, don't bring that up.
As the head coach of Ohio State.
On this
So I want to talk to you guys as players, guys who played for JT.
Gosh, they always say, where were you? Yeah. You remember notable things. I remember 9/11, walking into school and seeing it happen, at lunch, and oh wow, one building's on fire, and then watching the second plane hit. And one of the other moments like that for me is 12 years ago this weekend. I think Tony Romo was married, and their wedding festival was something of biblical times. It was like a 5-day long process, very long part. The rehearsal was this, then we had the wedding, and then we had the Sunday night Memorial Day concert afterwards.
Why not?
Oh, exactly. I was already in just some. Are you familiar with the band Steel Panther?
I'm not, but they sound great.
They're fantastic. If you're into 80s music and they cover a lot of stuff, and then they've got some of their own originals that are the very raunchy lyrics, but highly entertaining. And so we had that on Sunday. And so I'm reading that we go to that on Sunday night. I'm running on fumes. Get back. We're staying at the Witten's house. And my phone is just exploding that morning. And we're an hour back in Dallas. And I'm oh my gosh, it's 7:30, 8 o'clock. Been drinking 3 days straight. What is going on? And it's like, turn on the TV, turn on the TV. I'm getting all these texts. Pat Chun was one of the guys texting me. He was the current AD at Washington State. He was currently here at the time. And like, they fired Trestle. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. I'm leaning up in Witten's guest bedroom, turning on the television. I go downstairs, I'm like, Whit, dude. And he was like, you got to be kidding me. He's like, you fire your guy over that? And I'm like, yeah, Tennessee, I mean, it takes a lot more than that to get your guy fired. Still,
you got to lose a bunch of games to get fired there.
Yeah. You have to be cheating really bad and losing for that to happen.
And losing.
Because just the cheating, if you're winning, they'll figure out a way to.
They don't care about that.
Like, they just won the Sugar Bowl. I'm like, oh.
What moment in the time that you got to play for Trestle stands out to you as like the most Trestle moment that you had?
You want JC to answer this?
I want both.
Can I say
You're doing this to him again?
Yeah.
Didn't we just do
He
this?
did play for the guy. I mean,
the Penn State.
Oh,
the
that
Penn
was
State
great.
When he dropped the only F-bomb I've ever heard him say.
That was awesome.
That means we now have to hear the story. The only F-bomb in Jim Tressel.
I've never heard him drop it. I mean, this is even after, and he'll curse
Because
a
it was
little
always
bit
like
now.
son of a buck or, whatever. But yeah, this was.
I mean, he might throw in
a
a damn or like this or that, beat that damn team or something, But we're going to Penn State, and you guys have been there. It's the flying situation. Berm would be high level anxiety. It would be a stage 5 anxiety bag for Berm.
Well, he doesn't like it when we have to drive there.
Him and Nicole would be like grappling each other, throwing up on each other, crying as you're doing it, because it's an elevated air runway, very short too. And so if there's any like rain or low lying clouds, not a great scenario. And so I love the late great Bob Tucker. Former defensive coordinator, Ohio State, not a great ops guy. You need guys like Quinn Temple, who like football coach, but dude, like not like a career lifer coach. He knows how to solve problems and plan things. So we would never have any food or anything like this there. And we had watched film, and then the day before they prepared us. Weather's going to be bad. We might have to make some contingent.
What year was this?
This is 2005. We lost the damn game, which is the worst part of it all. We have our meetings, and they tell us the day before, could be bad, could be this and that. I'm like thinking in my head, well, why don't we just fly into Harrisburg and plan for that as part of the trip? No, we're gonna go down to Rickenbacker with no food, sit there for like 3 hours, wait. Oh, now we're gonna take off. But we're not going to Happy Valley. Now we are going to Harrisburg, 3 hours behind when we should have been 2 hours ahead. Get to Harrisburg. Another thing I'll never forget. Seniors could pick a movie.
The Boondock Saints.
The Boondock Saints. You ever seen Boondock Saints?
Awesome.
A lot of
coaches and wives in the front of the
Ellen
bus.
Trestle and Jim, I can see them watching.
And we're all sitting back there just dying because we know how uncomfortable they are.
When Rocco puts his hand on the dead stripper's boob, and I'm just looking, I wonder what Ellen is thinking about this. Lots of F-bombs.
Oh, gosh.
And so
Maybe that's what inspired Trust that day.
Maybe, possibly. So there's that is going on in the backdrop. Everybody's starving. It's like 8:45. We've eaten at like 11:30, trying to play a football game. We go to load up to leave the Harrisburg airport. We have 5 buses. We're in bus 1. I remember stopping and looking, and I hear some talking on the radio, and we start like, you can hear the other buses backing up. I'm like, what's going on? We had dead-ended in the parking lot, and then we had to back up 5 buses. It took like 25 to 30 minutes to exit the airport. Then another 2 hours to get there. And
Bob was not happy.
I'm making this very vocal. I'm probably halfway to 2/3 the way back in the bus. And I never forget, it was AJ Mangold and Rob Sims. And I'm just like, this is the worst setup. I'm starving, this and that, and just talking loud enough that everybody in the front can hear me. Because I was all of those things.
Sure.
I felt like Berm on the bus, very distraught, except we're trying to play Penn State, who's ranked like 5th in the country in their first whiteout.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Yeah.
Their first whiteout. And I see Tress whip around and spin to the back. Like, I'm like, man, we've been on this bus for a while.
Do you remember what it was that set him off right
no,
before he
I
came?
think it was just the
yeah.
It was just the
finally
simple
Ellen was
volume.
like, would you go shut him up, please?
And it's amazing because we have such a great relationship now. And
yeah, it is actually crazy.
He comes spinning to the back, and I'm looking, and I look up, see him, start talking again. And then he stops right in front of us. I look up, I look down, and like Nick, AJ, and Rob have just like abandoned me. They're like looking out the windows. I'm there, and he just looks at me. For the sake of this team, would you shut the bleep up? Yes, sir. Got it, coach. Thank you. Turns around and walks back to the front. And Robson was like, "You just had Coach Tress say the F word." I'm like, yep. I'm like, so I guess that's the one thing that I was able to drive him past. Because I mean, he would very rarely curse.
You know,
very rarely.
The funny thing, I got to wear headsets one time because Daryl Hazel went to the. Something happened to him in the morning. He went to the hospital the day of a game. It was our senior year, my senior year, and to hear these coaches. I mean, you got Trestle hardly ever cussed. You know, Bowman hardly ever. Like, they were all
not in front of you guys anyway.
Oh, no. You put those headsets on. What the beep? What the beep? Beep? And I'm just sitting there like, and then before the game, Trest's like, all right, whatever you hear, just it is what it is. And I'm like, I'm okay, and I did not expect. What in the is he doing? Are you kidding me? You know, just like, oh my gosh, like Joe Daniels, calm down up there, please. What is you're like the nicest guy ever. Yeah. It was hilarious just to listen to these guys, but then I understood why, because he would never let us wear headsets, quarterbacks. Yeah. You know, he would.
And a lot of teams do.
Most teams do, and then Tress would tell us to play, and we would signal it in. Like, you know, he would not let us do that, and I understand why now, because he did not want us to know.
Got to protect
what was going on, exactly.
And then, Justin, after hearing that, like, then you realize why the excessive number of delay of games, the process of getting a play called at Ohio State, you have an easier time getting the budget bill and getting the debt limit raised in Congress than you would getting a play. I heard this story, and I won't tell who said it, but they it was when we were having a lot of those issues, and either my senior year or yours, and Tress has Bowles in the staff meeting, and it was like maybe a Thursday. So we've had 2 days of practice. We're doing, you know, some special situations, but the game plan is in. And he has Bowles in the meeting, and he would go around and ask guys, you know, who you thinking of this week, Daryl, for wideout? What are your plans, rotation? You know, Fick, what's this? He looks over at Bowles. He goes, what do you think our first play is going to be? He's like, Bowles was like him and hawing for like 15, 30 seconds. Tress goes, delay game, like throws the fake flag in the air. And I'm like, that is the greatest story ever. It makes it feel so much better. Yeah. We got to delay a game my junior year coming out of a timeout. We were playing Marshall. I will never forget it. I remember that. I about put my head. You were the quarterback. I'm like, what are we doing? What did we just do? It was like 33.
And then we had
3rd and 8.
And then we took the penalty one time, and they scored on the next play after we held them on 3rd down.
Yes.
And you came. I think Tress met you halfway on the field. You were mother effing everybody.
He goes, it was 3rd.
It was 3rd down. We stopped.
It was 3rd down, and they ran a reverse. And I had made the play. I ran the dude down against Marshall. They're in the red zone. Tackled him for like a 3-yard loss. So it would have been like 4th and 8. But instead, we elect to take the penalty.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are we doing? And
then they
scored.
And then they score on the next play.
And I'm like, and Tress was like, they were going to go for it anyway. I was like, I don't.
Blew a gasket coming off the field. It was great.
That was probably my worst, one of my better games, but worst games as a player.
Yeah, that was.
So it blew up on the sideline. We gotta. I don't even. You were out there. What were we talking about? I have no clue. But we had a 3rd and 3, and then we had a 3rd and 8. It was like third and very manageable for us. That was manageable. I didn't like the 3rd and 7 pluses. That was punt alert, and that means punt, get ready, because we're probably going to run a draw.
Yep.
It's like, just please try.
How do you get a delay game when you know you're just running Dave right, Dave left anyway?
It doesn't make sense.
I don't remember. I wish
I will tell you this. Josh Perry told me, he goes, I was beside, it's like everybody thought Tress and Urban were so much different, and they are personality-wise. And Josh goes, in that Michigan State game that they lost in 15, he goes, I watched the biggest fight ever on a 3rd and 3 that we had to call timeout, and the argument was over whether to run 16 or 17 Q power. That's what it was. Not even like it wasn't
not even different plays.
It was like, whether it was
we're going right or left. What do we want to do?
And he's like, Urban's yelling at whoever the coaches were right there. He goes, and Josh is like, he's standing there for punt. He's like, oh my gosh, I thought we were like talking about, do we run a screen? Do we run that? No, right or left. That was it. I mean, and that's.
I think they got it wrong too.
That's
When you look back at the decision to fire Trestle and everything that's happened in college football since. Number one, it's insane. Number two, can you try to picture what Ohio State would be today if Trestle wasn't fired?
That's a very, in the parallel universe right now,
man.
choose your own adventure in life. I think, because I had talked to him before that season or the year before, because he was getting older. I used to joke when we see that.
He aged 30 years in the 9 years that he was head coach at Ohio State.
That's like, Ryan has held on to dark hair longer than anybody. I told him, it's only a matter of time.
It's like going to go like bright white.
It's like being the president. Like you walk in and we'd see that picture from 2002, our first, his second year. I walk back, I'm like, my gosh. I'm like, Tress. He's like, he used to always say, he's like, it's from you and Troy. I don't want to hear it. It's like, that's why I have all these. But I think Tress probably coached out the remainder of his deal, which was maybe 3 years-ish. Maybe it may have been, 11, 12, 13, or 14. Something like that, 3 or 4. And then he would have been, mid-60s, early 60s. And he was going to retire. And he had said that. And he had seen Joe Paul on Bowden and some of these guys, and as we saw now, there was always going to be another chapter to his life of helping people. Mm-hmm. And so then the question becomes is, Mark D'Antonio at that point's already at Michigan State. He's probably not coming
Urban
back.
would have been at Notre Dame.
He would have been somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Fickle, would he have left at that point to then leave and come back? Darrell Hazel had left. And could you hire someone from Kent State back? Was he at Purdue already? Depending on what year it would have been. And the timeline just gets real murky. And I will say this till I'm blue in the face. Since 1951, Ohio State has not missed on hiring of a head coach. And people can even be like, well, the Fickle year. I'm like, Fickle's a damn good head coach. He just had his hands tied and had 1 year.
Wasn't allowed to be.
Yeah. He was like an interim head coach. Like, he was filling in for a year.
Yes.
He knew that.
Without his 6 best players.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, and he still managed to play really well against Michigan, beat Wisconsin. Did some really freaking, if they don't blow that Nebraska game, he might be the head coach. So in this, that alternate reality, you have no idea who that could be. And it's like, is it Mel Tucker then coming back at that point? The devil you know better than devil you don't. I have no idea. Because I don't know who that guy would have been. I don't know if anyone would have been ready by that point.
I think it's just interesting because obviously at the time, anyone who was following Ohio State football was so shell-shocked and stunned and hurt, but also just like pissed off.
Oh, yeah.
But if you look back at the way the last 12 years went, it couldn't have gone the way it's been.
Yeah.
Which is the program is in a much different and better place than it's probably ever been ever.
Yeah.
Without that happening. So I think it's just this weird catch-22 where you're like, no one believes that Jim Tressel got what he deserved or what happened to him was what he deserved. So
with the timing of when it happened,
it
may have
was
been
meant to meant to be that way.
Yeah. And now we'll get to find out.
You can even argue the stuff with Urban and Ryan. Yeah. That's
it worked out
the timing situation of that.
It's pretty much ideal.
Yeah, I don't know if it could have been much better.
Because I think there's one thing that we can all agree on, and that's that Urban could not and was not wired to handle the NIL, transfer portal.
This right here.
I don't think it would have went so well.
Literally, and I say this, it may have killed him. The physical stress, he may have just died in his sleep one night.
Yeah,
or on the field.
Or on the field. That's real, and it's not even a gross exaggeration with how stressed he was given the former rules. And the fact that guys could be like, see you, coach, and just walk out
what
the
was
door.
That? I throw like a girl?
Yeah.
I'm out.
No, that stuff would not
get me $150,000 and quitting.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
That'd go over well for Herbs.
Yeah, but I don't think anybody loves it, but we'll talk to the coaches.
They do love his mozzarella sticks.
Yes, they do.
It's Appetizer Thursday. There's a lot more coverage coming on the podcast and at ohiostate.rivals.com as the assistant coaches have their media day to close out the month of May, and then camp season is coming. Berm will be very busy checking out
high school
checking
dudes.
out the dudes.
Checking out the young dudes starting next week. We'll be back in here on
great,
Monday.
Man. Bell Fountain and Finley, you can get those guys on the way home.
Yeah, battle. And he loves to stop by there for some tacos anyway. So
Del Taco and Bell Fountain.
Gross. Anyway, thanks to Nicole Cox for having us into the Horseshoe Lounge. That's Jay-Z, Bob. Berm, Bill's behind the camera. Appreciate him as well. I'm Austin Ward. We'll see you next week at Roosters. It's a fun, casual joint.